All right, let's get started today. Hello and welcome to everyone here today or watching this recording later. We are really happy to see all of you and to share what we've learned about Agentforce Nonprofit with this community. Note that Agentforce Nonprofit is formerly known as Nonprofit Cloud or NPC. This is our agenda for today. We'll start with welcome and intros. We'll move into a high-level look at what Agentforce Nonprofit is, how did we get here, and why migrate. We'll talk about migration considerations, and Melissa from BRAC will share BRAC's migration story. Fundraise Up will provide us with a demo, and we'll wrap up with a Q&A. Please be sure to drop your questions in the chat as we go along. I think it's in the Q&A as we go along. Our moderators will surface them during the Q&A session at the end. So welcome to our panelists. Amy, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Clark. I'm a senior business analyst here at Idealist Consulting. I have a background in education. I was previously a special education teacher, and I also worked in higher ed, but I've been working in the Salesforce nonprofit space for the last several years. I'm born and raised in Canada, moved to Atlanta just after college, and I'm raising my family in the heart of the city. Very happy to be speaking with you all today.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Leary. I'm a client success manager with Idealist Consulting. I'm also a certified PMP who, surprise, surprise, loves building relationships, empowering nonprofits, and nurturing balanced growth. I've long been a community advocate as a volunteer for various nonprofits, a former special education teacher like Amy, and also as a military spouse who has been chasing my husband from port to port for 25 years now. I need to get in the habit of saying veteran spouse because as of 2 weeks ago, my husband retired from the service. So hooray. I turn it over to Melissa.
Hello, all. Thanks again for having me. My name is Melissa Muro. I'm the Salesforce and Donation Processing Manager at BRAC USA. I've been with BRAC USA for about 2 years, but I've been in the nonprofit space for about 10 years. And last summer, I led our migration from NPSP to Nonprofit Cloud, now Agentforce Nonprofit. So I'm excited to be here and chat with you all today.
For those of you who have not yet worked with us, a little bit about Idealist Consulting before we get into the presentation. We are an award-winning Salesforce partner, and we've been in business for 20 years this year with over 2,000 implementations. We were one of the first B Corps in the world. We are also one of the 5 original architects of NPSP, and we're one of the first SIs to launch AFNP when it was still called NPC. In addition, we helped develop the AFNP training manual. I'm going to hand it over to Amy now to turn our focus to Agentforce Nonprofit.
Let's start with a reminder of what Agentforce Nonprofit is. So many of you may already be familiar with this solution. You might know it as Nonprofit Cloud or NPC, which was its original name when it launched in 2023, and the name I often find myself accidentally using. So apologies if I slip up during our conversation today. We aren't planning to dig deep into what the product is today. Our focus is on migration. So why now and how you can prepare. But we'll share a quick foundation just to set the stage. Agentforce Nonprofit, or AFNP, is built directly on the Salesforce platform, and it is purpose-built for nonprofit use cases. So it supports fundraising, program and case management, grant making, volunteer management, and outcomes. One of its strengths is that it benefits from innovation happening across all other Salesforce industry solutions, and it utilizes industry common features. All right, this slide captures the main architectural differences between NPSP and Agentforce Nonprofit. The biggest shift is moving from installable packages to a fully on-platform architecture and a fundamentally different data model. So we're shifting from an account and contact model with households as best practice to a person account model with some optional households. and we're moving from custom NPSP objects to core or standard objects. So we know what what Agentforce Nonprofit is and how it's different from NPSP. But how has Agentforce Nonprofit evolved over the past 3 years? More and more nonprofits are starting to feel like it might be time to migrate, and we want to talk a little bit about why. All right, it's been 3 years since this solution was first announced, and a lot has changed, which is exactly why the conversation around migration is picking up. In its earlier days, areas of functionality rolled out gradually. So we saw grant making and case management come out first, then fundraising and outcomes. In 2024, Salesforce introduced Agentforce and Agentic AI, which set the stage for much of what is being developed now. Next slide, please. Thank you. 2025 was a landmark year. The product was rebranded to Agentforce Nonprofit. Volunteer management launched on the platform. AI agents built for nonprofit use cases went live, and fundraising functionality got some meaningful upgrades, including the newer gift entry grid and gift planning and philanthropic models. Now the platform is more complete, more mature, and more capable than it was even a year ago, which changes the calculus for a lot of organizations. So with all of these new developments, there are clearly more reasons to migrate than in 2023, 2024, or even 2025. With all of this evolution, there are more compelling reasons to migrate today than at any point in the past 3 years. And here's what we're hearing from our clients as some of their biggest motivators. So the end of innovation for NPSP. This is a really big one. NPSP is no longer being innovated. Salesforce is now investing in Agentforce Nonprofit, and the gap between the two products will continue to grow over time. Future-proofing your org. Migrating puts you on a modern, scalable platform with modern architecture. So you're not just upgrading, you're positioning your org for the next decade. Another one is AI built for nonprofits. One of the most exciting things about Agentforce Nonprofit is the access to AI tools and agents built specifically for nonprofit workflows. And this isn't something that NPSP can offer. Nonprofit 360. So with volunteer management now on the platform, Agentforce Nonprofit can support more teams, more functions across your organization. So it can all be under one roof. Another thing to note is the migration swap deal. So Salesforce is currently offering some special licensing incentives just to help make the move more accessible. If you haven't already, you can connect with your AE to learn more about what's available. And then finally, a growing ecosystem. So 3 years in, there's a much stronger community. There's more implementation resources, and there are more partners with real migration experience. So you're not going at it alone. Looking ahead, there's already more innovation on the roadmap for 2026. So more pre-built agents, improved mobile experiences, and enhanced gift entry and management capabilities. Salesforce is planning for the release of some additional functionality across programs, volunteers, fundraising, and grant making, including some mobile-friendly applications for grant making, planned giving visualizations and fundraising predictions, a donor support agent, and mobile program attendance. All right, so let's say you've decided it's a good time to start planning for your migration. What should your team be considering during this process? Once you've decided migration is the right move, the next question is really, what are the key considerations? So the first thing to understand is this is a full re-implementation. It's not just an upgrade. The data model is different. The architecture is different. It really does require a strategic approach. A review of your integrations is critical. Some third-party tools that work with NPSP may not be fully compatible with Agentforce Nonprofit yet, so you'll want to audit your current tech stack early. Scalability. So we think of scalability as a feature, not as a given. Agentforce Nonprofit is designed to grow with your organization, but getting there does require some thoughtful planning upfront. And additionally, the platform will keep evolving, even when you're mid-migration. Salesforce is actively developing Agentforce Nonprofit, pulling in functionality from other industry clouds as they go. That's a really good thing, but it also means the product landscape can shift during your implementation timeline, and a good partner will help you stay informed and adapt your plan as needed. Migration is also a prime opportunity to just take a step back and think holistically about your data strategy, especially considering both structured and unstructured data. The older model we're used to of housing all data within Salesforce, it's starting to shift. So we're seeing more clients explore data lakehouses to store large volumes of data that don't need to or maybe can't live directly in their Salesforce instance, which also helps manage storage costs. Data lakehouses work especially well for housing unstructured data, which opens up more possibilities for AI applications down the road. Customer data platforms like Data 360 are also worth considering. They can help unify data in real time from external systems without requiring you to store it all in Salesforce or even another data management solution. The key question to think through is, what data do you truly need direct access to in your new instance, and what can live somewhere else? All right, we can't talk about migration without talking about change management. And at Idealist, that's something we keep at the center of every project. At a minimum, your team will need to be retrained on a new data model and a new user interface. That's not a small ask, and it's definitely worth planning for seriously. We strongly recommend identifying an internal team to champion the project. So those people who really understand your organization's culture and have a strong grasp of change management principles. And when selecting an implementation partner, look for one who brings a structured change management process, not just technical expertise. That's often what makes the difference in long-term adoption. One of the early strategic decisions you'll need to make is whether to move everything at once or possibly take a phased approach. And there's no single right answer. It really depends on your organization's capacity, your budget, and your priorities. Phasing can make a lot of sense for a few reasons. It lets you spread costs across multiple fiscal years rather than absorbing a large project budget all at once. It means that not every team is learning something new at the same time, which reduces overwhelm, and it gives you the opportunity to build momentum. So you get one team up and running successfully and let that enthusiasm carry the rest of the organization forward. Fundraising is often where organizations start, since it's typically the highest visibility function and the one most closely tied to organization goals. But it doesn't have to be. We're actually working with a client right now who is doing it in the opposite order. They're building out new programs directly in Agentforce Nonprofit first, and then plan to bring fundraising over in the coming year. So it's a great reminder that the right sequence really depends on your organization's priorities. I'm going to hand it back over to Sarah.
Addressing these considerations early and really providing the time and resources to an AFNP migration truly will make the journey easier. One of our recent AFNP migrations was for BRAC, an organization many of you know because they are a global leader in tackling poverty and inequality. We're lucky to have Melissa here with us today to share more about BRAC's journey. Melissa, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. So BRAC is an international NGO whose mission is to empower people and communities in situations of poverty, illiteracy, disease, and social injustice. Our interventions aim to achieve large-scale positive changes through economic and social programs that enable women and men to realize their potential. BRAC was founded in 1972 and has learned to approach poverty as a complex, systemic challenge that demands locally driven and scalable solutions. Our ecosystem spans programs in education, health, financial inclusion, social enterprise, humanitarian response, and more. So, as our operations expanded through the decades, we established affiliate offices in several countries who each developed nuanced ways of tracking grants and funding opportunities. This decentralized, locally led model naturally led to some silos over time. When our new CEO joined, Julia Roberts, she recognized a pattern she'd seen before. Salesforce was already in use, but each affiliate, including the US, Europe, Bangladesh, and other country offices, were operating in their own instances. So teams really couldn't see each other's work. Fundraising pipelines, partner relationships, global outreach, they were all siloed. In Julia's words, we only had visibility into our own market. So with that context in mind, the question really became, what would it take to fix it? I'll pass it off to Sarah to share more about the work Idealist did with our team.
Thanks, Melissa. So the objective was clear: consolidate multiple NPSP instances into one unified Agentforce Nonprofit instance, creating a single source of truth for global fundraising and partnership visibility. And critically, they needed to do it without disrupting active fundraising or field operations. This couldn't be a shut down everything and rebuild situation. So how did they actually pull it off? Let's talk about the approach. BRAC and Idealist built the project around three principles from the start: simplicity, collaboration, and scalability. These weren't just values, they shaped every decision made. The MVP first approach. Rather than trying to build everything all at once, the team focused on delivering a minimum viable product that would get teams up and running with real functionality fast. No scope creep, no waiting for perfection. Empowered global governance meant that each affiliate nominated a champion with real decision-making authority. This was critical. The working group was empowered to approve configurations and keep the project moving, which is no small thing for a decentralized global organization. BRAC's team learned by doing with hands-on embedded training. Melissa used Idealist Consulting's Story Navigator test scripts as practical training tools and brought them into a shared format accessible to all users, then layered in one-on-one and small group sessions so every user received guidance that matched their actual workflows. To elevate into smart data migration, the team had to merge thousands of records from several separate Salesforce orgs into a single, clean database. This meant building a structured deduplication protocol to get it right. Idealist Consulting's nonprofit expertise and migration scripts helped mitigate risk and guided key decisions: what to migrate, how to handle data transformation for both standard and custom objects, and where data strategy needed to evolve. The technology stack they built this on was just as intentional as the approach itself. The core of BRAC's MVP came together across three platforms, and how they connected made all the difference. Agentforce Nonprofit was the foundation, migrating and unifying three regional NPSP instances into a single global org. The centerpiece of that unified instance is the One BRAC dashboard, which gives teams real-time visibility into fundraising pipelines and partner engagement across every region. The initial focus was fundraising and getting that unified view up and running fast. Marketing Cloud account engagement extended that visibility into digital outreach. BRAC integrated 4 regional websites for unified campaign tracking and brought in automated UTM link generation to connect digital campaigns directly to site traffic and donation activity. Fundraise Up handles donation processing, and it connects seamlessly into Salesforce, so fundraising can keep running smoothly throughout and after the transition. We'll hear more about that from the Fundraise Up team shortly. So that was the plan on the platform. The question is, did it work? The results came quickly and they were measurable. Within 6 weeks of launch, active users across the global network grew by 300%. That's not just adoption, that's people logging in, using the system, and finding value in it fast. One of the most telling metrics: pending funding decisions, which are the go, no-go reviews that require due diligence on potential partners, they dropped from nearly 100 outstanding items to fewer than 20 in just 2 weeks. A new report gave decision makers real-time visibility, and they used it. The One BRAC dashboard replaced the spreadsheets and the email chains that used to hold global fundraising meetings together. Teams that previously couldn't see each other's partner relationships now have that visibility with a single login. And the project itself was delivered in 4 months at roughly 20% of the original projected cost. That's what a focused MVP first approach makes possible. Every successful project also comes with lessons learned, and BRAC's team has some really valuable ones to share. Melissa?
Yeah, very much agreed. Every migration naturally services things you didn't anticipate. So for us, the biggest lessons were about the work that happens before the project actually starts. The first lesson was get eyes on every org early. So my project team didn't have full visibility into all Salesforce instances before decisions needed to be made. In essence, some of the items in Idealist discovery phase were part of my discovery too. So knowing what you're actually working with before building matters enormously, from the data to the customizations to the quirks. The second lesson I'd say is front load the prep work. Because I was learning things at the same time as Idealist, there was a lot more problem solving mid-project than I would have liked. A more structured internal discovery upfront would have reduced this. A huge takeaway was that more time spent in discovery isn't a delay. It's a crucial investment. Lastly, I highly recommend investing in internal alignment before day one. Our decentralized model meant different teams carried different institutional knowledges and differing methods of getting things done. Aligning on processes before kickoff, not just technology, would have smoothed our path. The good news is that these are all things you can plan for. And that's exactly the value of going into a migration with a clear-eyed view of what a preparation actually requires. So now I'll hand it to our friends at Fundraise Up, who played a key role in keeping our fundraising running throughout this transition.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, everyone. My name is Maddie Wood. I'm an account executive here at Fundraise Up. And I also have my counterpart, Danielle Rice, who runs our solutions team. We're going to talk through how we can make sure that Fundraise Up is keeping things humming so you can go through transitions like they've just described with confidence. All right, so first things first, the real question is, who is Fundraise Up and what are we all about? Fundraise Up is the digital global fundraising platform that helps nonprofits raise more money for their mission by optimizing online giving experiences. We are not a CRM, and we're not an all-in-one suite, but we are a critical part of your tech stack that is hyper-focused on optimizing the online giving moment. Where legacy tools manage data, we focus more on conversion. That's our North Star metric, helping you turn more visitors from your website and your digital assets into donors, and where you can build lasting relationships and also make sure that you are building a sustainable revenue stream for your organization. What does that actually look like? When it comes to turning your website or any of your digital assets into a revenue engine, we're talking about using every possible opportunity to really draw people into giving. Fundraise Up uses something called elements, which we really describe as donor magnets. So they're smart visual points of entry that capture someone's intent to give the moment that it sparks without taking them out of the experience that they're engaged with on your website. So whether it's a banner or a modal or a call to action embedded in your story, every single one of those points of entry is intended to draw people's attention in and instigate a friction-free journey for that individual donor. Once a donor enters the checkout experience, it's not static. It's actually personalized to everybody who engages with that experience. So it's living, it's breathing, it's constantly being optimized and tweaked by our platform to get maximum number of completed donations without scaring donors away. Every prompt, every amount and upgrade suggestion is designed and thoughtful with the intent to capture the most recurring revenue for your organization, while also being sensitive to all the things that we might know about an individual donor. So we want to make sure that the experience feels effortless. It's not a heavy lift, it's easy to use, it's intuitive, and all of that helps this work in harmony with your organization to bring more revenue in the door. So when it comes to how we actually move the needle, as I mentioned, that conversion rate really is one of our major North Star metrics. But there are a lot of other areas where we see changes and growth for our organizations using Fundraise Up. When we look at average one-time gift size, Fundraise Up customers typically see more than the industry average of $126. We also see higher average monthly gift amounts. We see a higher rate of donor fee coverage, so folks opting to cover their fees at the time of making that donation. We also see a quicker time to donate. So from that moment, that spark where they feel the intent to give, we're able to instigate and also complete the donation experience faster. And then we also have a very high donor retention rate, which really speaks to a variety of intelligence working in the background to make sure that we're meeting donors where they're at. We're making it easy to self-service by, changing payment methods and giving them the opportunity to update their profiles themselves. And we also are making sure that we're intelligently retaining them using a variety of tactics over time, so we can build trust and maintain that trust throughout the entirety of their experience with your organization. I'm going to hand it over to Danielle to talk about how these things all lended themselves very nicely to BRAC as they were going through this transition.
Thanks, Maddie. I think it's really exciting to be able to look at the ways we're able to maximize revenue. But when you're approaching a Salesforce transition and migration, sometimes you pause and assess the risks as well. And so we wanted to kind of come today and highlight you can grow revenue while you're transitioning. You can do that safely. I've personally kind of led teams through digital transformations and other implementations, and I know there's both the structure and operational side, but there's the personal side as well, because any change can be scary. It's not just anxiety about if you made the right decision, is this the right time for this, but the practical revenue and operational risks as well kind of loom in the balance. And with many organizations, it's not that just that change can be better now, but it's better for your long-term strategy as well. We want to be able to maximize the short-term revenue by leveraging Fundraise Up throughout that process. I'll kind of show you a way to do that. So when you look at this as a whole, as time goes on, we want to see revenue increase. We want to have a really clear planning process. And ultimately, exactly how she was saying before, we want to capture this migration window. When you leverage Fundraise Up throughout this transition process, you gain a solutions engineer from my team, a solutions architect from my team at no cost. There's not an amount of hours we're scoped for. The goal is truly your success, and that's why they act as an extension of your team. You also gain the benefit of an enhanced donor experience and reduced administrative effort through the Fundraise Up donor portal. That means while you're building out all of these other experiences and infrastructure, you know the data throughout that process is consistent, because we're able to connect to both types of integrations, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But while you're looking at this long-term revenue maximization process, the thing we really want to focus in on is ARPD, which is the average revenue per donor. That's looking at the initial conversion rate increase, but also looking at monthly donor optimization throughout the process, or through the donor portal, the post-donation upsell, so that we're constantly maximizing revenue throughout the process. So let's look at exactly what that process looks like. So it's truly that easy, and I really wanted to show it to you to make the point. In terms of moving from one to the other, you can see here the multiple different integration options natively supported through Fundraise Up to connect to these different experiences. And so what you would do is just navigate to the settings and select the integration that you would like to select. And if you go on to the next part is authentication. I would highly recommend testing in a sandbox, as always, making sure the data is flowing the way that you want it to, and then coming back and doing this quick step in the production environment. And when you're testing in a sandbox, I'll show you what that looks like to be able to set the mapping rules and nomenclature to exactly what you want to see. There we go. And so on this page, you can see the different nomenclature so that it's not just one size fits all, and you can really start to craft that that data processing in the way that is unique and customized to your organization, and then syncing that test data in that sandbox environment so that as you're looking over the fields, it's really right to your organization and customized to that. The other thing that we'd want to look at on the next slide is the mapping rules. So this is looking at what are the fields in Fundraise Up, and then what are those fields that are in Agentforce, and being able to map them in the way that is really specific to your organization. If you're already a Fundraise Up customer and have that mapping in place for the prior configuration, we can also kind of move this over and through that broader process, consider if any configurations need to be changed. This is one of the things that I really would highlight, that we're part of your team, because we can not only look at these mapping rules, but are available to jump into your Salesforce ecosystem, look at flows, and really just partner with you, the Idealist team, and the broader partnerships that you have to make sure that the connections from Fundraise Up are doing what they need to ultimately so that you don't get bogged down by the technology and you can continue to focus on the things that make your work great. BRAC went through this exact process, and they experienced this firsthand. They came looking for a frictionless giving experience, personalization, and just that native Salesforce integration. And you can see here throughout this process some of the things that they were looking for, and ultimately the outcomes that you and others can also see as well. So I'll pass this back to Maddie to explain a little bit more about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Danielle. So when it comes to the opportunity, even amid change, it really is a great opportunity to have Fundraise Up be that constant and make sure that you really feel stable and also empowered amid change, no matter what the digital transformation is that you're going through. So by modernizing the donor experience, we have an opportunity to really consolidate that donor experience and make sure that it feels more intuitive, donor-centric across the board, and make sure that it's not fragmented. So we have an opportunity to consolidate and modernize with this platform, even amid change. And amid that change, we want to make sure we're not just finding that stability. Yes, we want to be a constant. Yes, we want to be your rock. Yes, we want to make sure we're bringing in revenue, but we also want to make sure you're feeling empowered to grow. So even amid change, there's an opportunity to really maximize the revenue that's coming in the door, to make sure that the time and effort that's being put into any digital transformation projects can be focused without having to sacrifice fundraising efforts and revenue. We also can help centralize donor management. So by doing this, we achieve a few different things. One is a consistent experience for all of your recurring donors, either that are acquired through Fundraise Up and that might be migrated to Fundraise Up. So we create that consistent donor experience, complete with a variety of self-serve options, as Danielle has shared a little bit about. But this also increases operational efficiency because we're taking a lot of those phone calls that folks on donor services might get out of their hands and allowing donors to self-serve and make those updates and solve those challenges themselves directly. And then at the end of the day, by having this modern, fully established experience that works in partnership and in harmony with all of your other tools, you have the opportunity to really take a step back, knowing that the foundational experience for your donors and your internal users is taken care of, and really get creative about what other fundraising channels you might want to explore. So there's a lot of opportunity when it comes to ensuring that revenue is both secure and maximized, even amid big periods of transition, like NPSP to Agentforce. When it comes to Fundraise Up, there's a lot that Danielle and I could share. We're very grateful for the opportunity to share just a little bit about us and what Fundraise Up is all about today. But we do encourage you to follow along with Fundraise Up on LinkedIn. We're always posting about new features and new customer success stories. Don't be shy. Always reach out. We're happy to chat. And with that, I will pass it back to Sarah.
Thank you, Maddie. So wrapping up, before you can move forward, you need to know where you're starting from. Here's what we recommend getting a handle on. Begin with an audit of your integrations and App Exchange apps. Document your current business processes. Inventory your technical debt and backlog items. Assess your data health. And critically, decide what you're bringing forward. Think about it as retain, retire, or rebuild. Beyond your org, your team needs to get ready too. A few things to align on. Define your timeline and key milestones. Assess your team's current Salesforce skill sets. Evaluate staffing needs and capacity for the project. This is really important. Build out your change management plan. Budget realistically, not just for implementation, but for everything that comes with it. And make sure the migration connects with your long-term technology roadmap. This should be a strategic move, not just a technical one. We'll be sharing this checklist as part of our event follow-up, so keep an eye out. This is a lot, though. Many of our current clients that are thinking about migrating from NPSP to AFNP want to know where to begin. What's the first step? Our recommendations are start with an assessment to identify a roadmap. Work with your SI partner or Idealist Consulting to start chipping away at the prep work for the migration. If you're ready to go now, reach out to an SI partner like us. We have a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to read some of them. We have some time to cover them before we sign off. Let me get in my chat. Let's see. We have a question for Fundraise Up. Does Fundraise Up process donations and payments, or is there a payment processor involved taking an additional fee?
Yeah, great question. So Fundraise Up uses Stripe as its payment processor. And so we partner together. Our solutions, they work hand in hand. So there is an associated Stripe fee in addition to Fundraise Up fees, and always happy to chat through the specifics of that or send you to the right person on the Stripe side of things.
Okay. Question about sharing the presentation as a PDF. Are we going to do that afterwards? I think that's a yes. Idealist Consulting host who owns the deck. Are we going to share this out? Yes, we can. I got it in the chat. We can. We will also be sending the recording as well. Okay, let's see what else is in here. There was one really significant one that came early on asking about is Salesforce going to force us to migrate eventually? The answer to that is we can't speak for what Salesforce is planning to do, but we know there is still a huge user base on NPSP. There's been no talk of sunsetting it. We know it's not going to receive any enhancements, but there's no talk of sunsetting it. Next question, is there a different cost? Do we get 10 free licenses? Salesforce is the best to ask about this, but P10 is still available and AFNP is now the default product for that offering. Let's see. Amy, I'm going to ping this one to you. A question, do we need to download a new package with the new AFNP licenses and you're automatically added to new models? What happens when you delete the NPSP apps?
That's a good question. So Salesforce will provision you a new production instance for Agentforce Nonprofit. It's not a downloadable package. It's an entirely new instance that will come with the correct licensing. And I think I answered in here somewhere. Essentially, you'll be able to turn on certain pieces of functionality, but it will remain separate from your NPSP instance. Did that answer the question?
I think so. Thank you, Amy. We get a compliment for Fundraise Up, great platform, and the integration to Salesforce is solid. A question, do you have to use Fundraise Up with Agentforce Nonprofit? Is it the only donation platform that works with AFNP? We love Fundraise Up. They're fantastic, but they're not the only one that works with AFNP. There are multiples that work that would be a good connector. We could help you with that. Let's see, Melissa, I'm going to pull you in on this one. Is the user increase with BRAC, does that indicate members within the organization that are now using the tools are more effective or end users interacting with the platform more? I'm going to say both. Melissa, I'll let you take this one.
Yes, definitely both. We had some folks using different instances that were siloed, but also we had people on spreadsheets as well. So the kind of combination of everything together led to, just higher adoption, people realizing they have visibility into what everybody else is doing. These collaborations that were happening via email were now very visible in the system via the dashboard. So definitely both.
Okay, thank you. How long does a migration from NPSP to Agentforce Nonprofit usually take? This really varies a lot based on how you want to do it. If you want to do an MVP approach, that's what BRAC did. It was about 4 months. If you want to do a phased approach, it can be chunked out into, 3 months, 4 months, and then your next one, your next one, your next one. If you want to do it all as one large project, it can take up to 18 months, depending on the speed you want to go at, the change management style that you're adopting, where you're starting from, how much pre and prep work needs to be done. Let's see. What Salesforce tools would you guys find effective and would you recommend for data migration? I believe there are multiple. Amy, do you have an answer for this?
I I don't have a good answer for that, but we do have an excellent data migration specialist at Idealist. Grant is extremely talented and would be happy to talk about the different options.
Okay,
He's just
thanks.
not on today.
Yep, thank you. Another question for Fundraise Up. If I have more custom fields that I'm trying to map into, what would that look like?
Yeah, I can answer that. So there's kind of two ways to map the fields. One was the screenshot that I showed, the default mapping. But if you tab over on that same page, it will show what we call special rules. And in those rules, you can start to have more direct mapping into custom fields and kind of conditional logic to say, if this is happening in Fundraise Up, then map into this scenario. So that's typically where some of those custom rules would be placed. But of course, happy to discuss more as we get into deeper technical discovery.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. How much, Amy, I'm gonna give this one to you as well. How much customization is possible with AFNP? Can fields be added to standard objects? Can custom objects be created, etc.?
Yeah, great question. And yes, we use several custom objects right off the bat to support some nonprofit specific functionality, but there's room for lots and lots of customization. It's similar to what you would see in NPSP, where you can create new fields, create new objects, create lots of automizations, Apex code, etc. So lots of availability or ability to make some customizations.
Thank you, Amy. Another question. What's the evaluation criteria for just staying on your existing org and leaning into Agentforce or whatever that will eventually be called? Yeah, nod of the hat to that one. And core Salesforce. Is that a consideration you've helped people evaluate? Yes, we have clients that are staying on NPSP and are doing what we've called either an interim agent or building an agent right in their NPSP. We can configure it there so we can pull some of that AI Agentforce functionality into NPSP. The decision is it's a really personal one for every nonprofit organization. And that's really where I think an assessment would be critical to help you look at what are you using your Salesforce for? What could you be using it for? What other tools are you using that are either siloed or already integrated with your Salesforce org, with your NPSP? What would that look like if you went to NPC? What would the ROI be? That's something that an SI can help you, that they can help you evaluate. How does the phased approach functionally work? Is info siloed in one instance or the other until the next phase brings it over? Amy, do you want to handle this?
Sure. So typically what we've seen so far is maybe you are pulling over let's say fundraising first. And so you pull over all of your donor and gift related data, and then maybe grant making comes later. So then you're pulling over the grant making data. Of course, there can be some overlap, and I do think that it likely requires a bit of a sync up at the end. But yeah, you can kind of pull over the bits and pieces that you need as you go, and then sort of take note of the different updates that need to be pushed over at the end. And I think that's where working with a data specialist is really key, because they can kind of highlight those pieces that need to have special care taken attention to them. And they can also help come up with the overall plan for how data is moved over, in what order, at what cadence, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Amy. Amy, do you want to answer the question? I think you were typing an answer to it anyway. So cleaning up data makes complete sense, but what about other technical debt, things like flows, Apex, architectural choices, etc.? Any value in cleaning any of that up, or just re-implement it?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to spend some time kind of taking an overall look at all of those different pieces, maybe creating like an automations catalog, et cetera, and really understanding what the different automations are, what the different Apex is that's being currently used. I don't know that there are some pieces that you can move directly over. There are lots of flows, et cetera, that we can move over and tweak to fit the new architecture. But I wouldn't want to just blindly push everything over. I think it is worth taking some time in preparation for the project to really understand exactly what kinds of automations you already have in place. Are they working optimally? It's a good time to sort of restructure some of them, maybe clean them up. So yeah, I wouldn't just push them all over, but I would spend some time getting a good idea of what exists and how it's working currently.
That's a great answer. Okay, another one for Fundraise Up. Is there now direct Stripe integration in the platform? Maddie or Danielle?
Yeah, happy to take that. So just to confirm, we have a direct integration with Stripe. That is the payment processor on which Fundraise Up is built. And we do have Canadian CRA compliant tax receipting out of the box as part of Fundraise Up in our solution.
Okay, thank you. We're getting questions about licensing costs. That's really something that would be best to talk about with your Salesforce AE. They have their own licensing model. There's a little bit of consumption cost depending on what platform you're talking about. I would encourage you to reach out to your AE to get an idea of what your licensing cost would be. Let me see. Okay. Would you say it is a bit of a misconception that Agentforce Nonprofit is a bit of a lift to migrate to for smaller nonprofits that may not have a robust technical expertise in-house? I would say for this, you really need to rely on an SI. You need a partner to help you make this decision and to help you set up your AFNP correctly, and perhaps to maintain it, keep you on a small managed services type of a contract where they could help you maintain it. Is it too much of a lift? Maybe. It depends on what you're using your instance for. It depends on what you want to be using it for. It depends, like, what is your long-term goal? Again, I'm going to circle back to recommending an assessment that includes your long-term technical goals, really your business processes, more of a holistic look at it. During the transition, while you have an AFNP instance and an NPSP instance, you have to pay for licenses for both. We know there is a grace period. It depends. That is another question for your AE, but we have seen a grace period that will allow you time to transition. Broad recommendations about paths forward for organizations that have strong stances against AI, especially related to sharing our program and contact data with AI. That is a great question. Does anyone on our panel feel prepared to answer that question?
I don't know that I have a great answer, but I would say that Agentforce Nonprofit doesn't require the use of AI. So I think that's one thing to take into consideration. I also know that Idealist, a lot of nonprofits are taking a really thoughtful, um, ethical approach to fully understanding what it means to use AI in different capacities, what kind of access to data they want to give AI, and that sort of thing. So I do think it's a broader conversation, but I don't think that switching to Agentforce Nonprofit inherently means that you'll be sharing your data with AI.
Thank you, Amy. Are there recommended tools that help with creating a catalog of automations, custom fields, data dictionary, etc.? Amy, what have you seen people use?
We actually have a lot of catalogs, workbooks, data dictionaries, etc. We use a lot of templates. And so we will spin them up at the beginning of each new migration so that we both understand what exists currently and can easily keep track of the changes as we're moving things over. I don't know of any tools just because we are using those templates. So yes, sorry, I don't have a recommendation for that.
Okay, thanks, Amy. What are some unknown costs you have seen arise in a migration? Appreciate the webinar, thank you. Unknown costs that I have seen from a client success perspective is clients occasionally underestimating how much time it's going to require of their internal staff. Melissa, you can probably speak to this. As your job changed midway through your transition, perhaps on account of the requirements that were being asked of you for this transition.
Yeah, definitely. So there were also in addition, part of the MVP approach meant we kind of had to put some items in the backlog. So some expenses we thought we would make immediately end up in the backlog. So that really just made the payments that we were going to make happen slowly over time rather than all at once. So those are sort of the way that the cost ended up shaping up. And as you said, my job changed because I was initially part of the individual philanthropy team as our like Salesforce person, but my role kind of changed to be the one BRAC global lead, sort of managing all of the Salesforce items. So yeah, I just say things change, but it's inevitable.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. So between underestimating or needing to really adequately allow your staff the capacity that they're going to need, up to 10 to 15 hours a week of during discovery time and then user training, depending on what role they play in the project, this can take away a significant portion of what they would be doing for their other job. There's a question, does NPC already include sales and service cloud functionalities, or would those need to be added, purchased separately? So the beauty of NPC or AFNP is that it is, because it's on the same, it's a core Salesforce platform, it's pulling in and learning and growing and able to use functionality for lots of different clouds. There are aspects of education cloud. There are aspects of government cloud, aspects of health cloud, sales and services, all able to work together. And if it's not on there immediately, it will be. This is really part of like the knowledge sharing that's happening as you step into the AFNP world. Okay, I think my voice has time for one more question. Let's see. Have Idealist Fundraise Up helped organizations integrate a separate financial management accounting software to allow donations to reconcile from Salesforce to the accounting system of record? Maddie or Danielle, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I will kind of quickly give broad strokes around that. We will typically get involved in multiple digital transformations to figure out what the right data flow is to design the donor experience. And so we've done that with multiple organizations. I don't have one top of mind that is specifically around the financial side, but I would say working with partners like Idealist, they are kind of constructing that broader data flow and architecture plan. And then we would be right alongside it to make sure that Fundraise Up is integrated appropriately so your donors don't miss a beat.
Thank you, Danielle. Okay, one more. I lied, one more because a really important one that I think we need to address on this webinar. Can BRAC also speak on how they handled managing fundraising processes in the separate instances while consolidating and migrating? Did new donations come into the AFNP and old ones were managed in the old orgs? Was there a blackout period? Was there a time when you saw a dip in donations during the 4 months of implementations? Super important question. Melissa, can you take a minute for this one?
Yeah, definitely. So because you've been using Fundraise Up prior and during the transition, there was no blackout period. We were able to set everything up in the back end, set the mapping, so everything was smoothly and ready to be fully migrated over. So the sync was live in the old orgs. And then we just set a date, set a checklist with Idealist. They let us know, do this, do that, do this. And we set a specific time on a specific day to turn the sync off on the old and turn it on for the new. So it really was just a really thoughtful process. And there were no dips in donations. There was no blackout period. It was very smooth.
So even something like recurring donations? Melissa, are you
Sorry,
still-
my videos.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, recurring donations. Yeah, there was no lag of any sort. Yeah, and in the new model, they're structured a little bit differently, but yeah, everything went through very smoothly.
You didn't miss a beat. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, 2 minutes back to everyone. Thank you so much for attending our webinar today. It's really fantastic to participate in this conversation with you guys. You'll get a whole bunch of info on this webinar. You'll get the recording, you'll get the PDF, you'll get some other resources emailed out from our fabulous Idealist marketing team. And as always, you can reach out to any of us on LinkedIn or by email if you have any additional thoughts, questions, concerns. I hope everyone has a great rest of your Thursday. Bye.